This is a Games Workshop Space Marine that I bought and painted. And this, well, this is his big brother that I printed and painted. And now I'm going to show you how I did it. To start with then, I had to find myself the Space Marine file. And due to a recent copyright strike from Games Workshop, I won't be announcing how or where I found it, but it is out there on the internet if you look. Anyway, once I got it, I dropped it into Lychee. So I'm all set up for my Photon M5S, and my plan was to try and make it as big as the build plate would allow, and the entire printer essentially. So I scaled him up as high as I could go, and then I had to bring it back down slightly because I went too high. And next then I thought what I'll do is, well, I'm going to hollow him out because I don't want to print a massive chunk of resin, as cool as that would be. And now I've just thought about it, actually that would be awesome, maybe one day. Anyway, I had to put some drainage holes in because if you are unfamiliar, you need to put holes in your 3D prints if they're hollow, because you need to get that excess resin out. So all the holes went in, and then because I'm lazy, I generated some automatic supports. They're not the best, as people might know, so what I do is I do that as a starting point, and then I go in and I add my own extra supports because it takes forever to do it all in one go. So that was my first steps, and I had a feeling it might not work. So this was a trial thing because of the way he was orientated. And I was correct. So my printer clearly had a freak out, and it had nothing to do, I don't think, with how the model or file was sliced. It just seemed to freak out and just thought it was printing, and it wasn't. As you can see, it was just hanging above the resin, and that was the first test and result, a fail. And what would be the most logical next step in trying to fix this issue? That's right, try and make the print bigger. Because instead of trying to work out what went wrong, I decided, how big can I actually print this guy? So in my mind I wanted him to be massive, as big as I could make it. So I decided to try and cut the model up in hopes that I could maybe print both legs separately, as big as possible, and then print the torso, glue it all together, and there you go. However, I don't know how to do that, so I had a quick go in Blender and it all went horribly wrong. And I wasn't willing to sit there and learn it all because I was on a time constraint. So I gave up. What I did do was take my original idea, scale him up as high as I could get him, but angle him a bit better so the print shouldn't fail. And that's basically what happens if you're unfamiliar. If you print it straight up, it's more likely to fall off and break. However, if you orientate it about a 45-degree angle, you're more likely to get a successful print. And as you can see, that's exactly what happened. Bada bing, bada boom. After about a 4-hour print, he was ready to be washed, so I dropped him into his isopropyl alcohol bath just to rinse off any excess resin, and to hopefully get it into all those holes to get out all that resin that is sitting in that hollow shell of a Space Marine. With the Marine successfully printed then, it was time to print his backpack. Now the file I downloaded, in the zip, it only had these two files, so there was no way to actually separate his hands and his bolter. Like if any of you are actually watching this who had the old 90s Marines, you will know that this type of Marine was a push-fit Marine, where you push the backpack on and you push his hands with his gun on. However, this, the Marine came all in one, but the backpack was separate. So I had to then basically do the same again. So get the backpack printed, go through all my settings, make sure everything was fine, just basically do the same thing again, and it worked in one go, no problems there. A quick look at him then. So this was straight out of the curing station. I removed all the supports, and this is basically just how he looked straight out of all of that essentially. So as you can see, he had a bit of scarring and stuff from the supports that needed tidying up. He's got some scratches on him from where he's been scratched trying to get the supports removed. And you can see these are all the drainage holes. So luckily they did their trick. I did have to poke a few of them through because they had sealed in the print, and so what I had to do was just sort of jam something in there, get them all unsealed, and then give it another wash to get all the excess resin out. And then let him stand for a while. Just stand upright for a day or so. Just let all the excess isopropyl alcohol, everything just sort of run out. And yeah, then he's ready to go. But as you can see, there's some little supports behind his gun that I've missed and everything. So I'll need to get in there, get them all sorted. But as a whole, he printed perfectly. I couldn't find any issues with it. There's no problems, no errors, everything. He printed perfectly. So my next stage would be to cover up and block all those holes up. And the backpack came out in one go. Nailed it. So you can see from the back, it does look a bit ugly from where all the supports are. And yes, there's still isopropyl alcohol in there because, like the Marine, the holes that are there to let all the excess resin and stuff out, actually most of them were printed sealed. So I had to go through and just basically open them up like I did on the Space Marine, and then just again give it another wash, let it sit for a while, just make sure everything had ran out of it and we had no issues. And this is how it's just going to fit on. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to try gluing it, but I have a feeling it's not going to stay on because the actual part where it glues onto is not big enough to slot on. So I think I might need some more support when it comes to that. Right, so before I sand it all down basically and tidy them up, let's get these holes filled in. So I've got myself some milliput, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the holes in the crotch area, in the shoulders, and I'm going to leave the feet alone because I don't think they really need it. But what I'll do is I'll sand it all down. So I'm going to fill it in with milliput, let it all set, and then sand it all down together. After I got him all sanded down, then all the holes filled in, it was time to start painting. So my idea I had was to do what's known as Zenithal highlights. And to anybody who is not sure about that, it's basically where you take your model, you spray it in a dark colour, and then what you do is you take a lighter colour, probably mostly white normally, and you try and spray it from above, as if, or from the angle you want the light source to be coming from basically. And what it's meant to do is when you hit it with your colour, generate natural shadowing because you've hit it with the white on top. That was the idea anyway. Here is the result of my first attempt at Zenithal highlighting. I used a rattle can, I used Games Workshop's white scar I believe, same with the black, it was Games Workshop black, straight out of a can, and I don't think I've done it quite right. It's worked, as you can see underneath, that's kind of the effect you want, so when I do hit it with my colour eventually, you know, all that's going to look darker, so that hopefully should work. I'm just not sure if it's going to work on top. It looks like I may have done too much, or I've not gone at the right angle, or something. I don't feel convinced by it. But either way, my first attempt, so I'm not going to spend loads of time trying to correct it. I'm just going to go with it and see what we get. This is going to be a present for my dad once it's completed. So that gave me inspiration to paint it up like the Kirin Tor from Warcraft, as this is one of his favourite games to play and one of his favourite factions from within the game. So if you're unfamiliar with the Kirin Tor or Warcraft or anything of the sort, as you can see, their main colour scheme is a sort of purpley pink with gold yellow or silver. Mostly purple, I would say. For me anyway, I always thought it looked more purple than it does pink. So that's what I'll be rolling with. I'm going to go purple, and I'm going to choose a sort of yellow to complement it more than the gold or the silver aspect, because I think the purple and the yellow go really well together and it'll just be nice to paint. But not only that, I'm going to have a go at freehanding the Kirin Tor logo onto the shoulder pad as well to symbolise the Space Marines chapter. So this is something a bit out of my comfort zone as well, so it's going to be a nice challenge to have a go at. So let's see how we get on. And the purple I chose for this is Phoenician Purple from Games Workshop. I think it looks exactly like the purple I had in mind, so hopefully this will come out like that and it'll be perfect and everything will be hunky-dory and amazing, and I can't wait to try it. So let's get on with it. With my colour now chosen, I loaded up the airbrush, and I'll be the first to say I'm not the best at airbrushing. I don't do it all too often, and I've only ever base coated things with an airbrush. I've never gone too fancy. So in theory I should be in my element at this point because all I'm doing is base coating it. And it went on really well, actually. I'm rather impressed, and I was very pleased with the colour. It's the exact colour I was looking for. And yeah, I had a whale of a time, actually. It's quite nice, and just spraying a giant model with your airbrush and just watching that purple go on. It was really satisfying and quite nice to see. And here was the result then. So it sort of worked. You can kind of see where the light hits it a bit, but not as much as I imagined it was going to do. So it's not quite how I wanted it to turn out, but yeah, it's done something. So it doesn't look flat. That's what I'm happy about. You can kind of see it more in the shoulders and the top of the backpack. There is like a hint that it transitions from a bit of a lighter purple to a darker purple. But you know, it's not as great as I thought, but I'm happy with it still. But what I can do from here now is I can actually add some extra shading with my brush and stuff and tidy it up. So guess where I'm going next? That next stage then would be to pick out some of the details, so some other colours. So my idea was to base all the other colours that I'm going to be using on the model, so that A, gives me an idea of what colour everything's going to be, and where am I at? Basically, it just gives me an idea of what's going on, essentially. So I started with the yellow because, like I was saying, the Kirin Tor, you know, they have like a sort of golden yellow or purpley sort of yellowy gold colour scheme going on. So I chose this yellow from Zenithal. So this is just going to be a base yellow. So it's not going to be this dark once it's finally done. But as you can see, it's going on pretty thinly anyway. So I have watered it down slightly just to make sure it doesn't go on too thick and it gives a nice even cover. But what I'll have to do is come back and just do a couple of layers of this just to build it up, just to get a solid colour before then putting on the actual yellow I want to use. And of course, I've got to be really careful because I've done this really nice purple and this transition purple with the Zenithal highlights, that if I was to get it everywhere and completely screw it up, it would be really annoying. But I just slapped it on certain places with a big brush, and then I eventually went through with a smaller brush and just tidied everything up and tried to avoid getting it on the purple. Spoiler alert, I get it on the purple. It was bound to happen. But I decided to do the shoulder trim in the yellow, the eagle on the chest in the yellow, and I think that was it for yellow in the end. As the yellow was drying then, I went on to block in all the parts that would be black. So this basically would mean that his bolter, his gun would be black, the bits in between his arms, legs, you know, the knees, elbows, all those joints areas were going to be black. Cables, pouches, I think that was it really. So I took the black, just went straight on, and it went on like a dream. It was like it covered so well, and just instantly there was no issues really with this black. Although saying that, take that back instantly. No, the only issue I had was it dried a bit glossy, but it's fine because I can hit it with a matte varnish later. The next step then, whilst those were drying or had dried, I went in and I wanted to put the silver on. Now there's not much silver on him, it's mostly the gun, and I was using Citadel silver, and of course if you're familiar with Citadel silvers you'll know that they separate and they can not be used, so you have to give them a really good shake, and it's kind of annoying, but you know, it happens. So anyway, once I got it all working fine, yeah, I basically just blocked in all the silver parts. After a few more passes with that yellow then, I got a nice solid colour on him. Same with all the other colours, and as you can see I've done the eyes now as well, that's just a starting point. And of course, halfway through it, the backpack fell off. So here's what the backpack looks like currently. Silver and black on it. Next stage then would be to wash everything. And of course, tidy up a bit. As you can see, I've got yellow on the purple, which I knew was going to happen. I did the pouch brown. I think I had it black initially, changed my mind just to separate it a bit from the gun. His dagger pouch or his dagger on the side still black and everything. And as you can see, I've added a bit of white to the eagle or the feathers or whatever it's meant to be on his gun. And I've done a little bit of highlighting. As you can see on the wrist, I've attempted to have a go at putting a lighter purple on just to make it pop a little bit more. But this is all still the starting stages really. So I'm going to move on and have a go at finishing it off. And here he is then before I take him away to matte varnish him. So as you can hopefully see, there is a big difference to how he looked a second ago. You can probably see a bit more depth in him from where I've highlighted all the armour and done the bolt guns. I finished off all the silver with a wash and some more silver on top. And one thing I wanted to do was actually, I did think about painting the knees yellow just to add some more yellow into it. However, I quite like it how it is with all the purple, so I didn't do that in the end, but that was an idea. Speaking of yellow though, what I've done is for the eagle, obviously washed it and highlighted it. And then for the eyes, I finished off the eyes with a nice blue and highlighted them. And then I painted or hand painted this tactical sign onto him, which I think I might needed some more layers, but it doesn't look too bad. But I think it's a bit janky in some places, but it's freehand, so what do you expect? And quickly, I've painted that little gem on his chest there, just in case you do happen to look down there. One thing I've learned is I don't know how to paint leather. So the methods I normally use for the regular size models do not translate that well to big scale things. And I have learned now that I need to learn how to paint that. So there's one thing I picked up along the way. And looking at the backpack, you've got the same stuff going on. So you've got silvers here and that I've washed and just built back up with more silver on top. I've painted all the cabling and stuff and all the rivets and all the bits in between his knees and stuff like that. So all the softwood areas. And this is the bit I was the most excited to give a go because A, I've never really paint freehand stuff, and B, I wanted to put a really cool Kirin Tor logo onto him. And it's turned out okay. From my first attempt at trying to freehand stuff like this, I'll give it a pass. I think maybe if I'd given it another go, I could have done better, but that's learning, isn't it, really? And the only reason I couldn't go back and do it was because of the gradient I'd already put on the shoulder pads. I would have to repaint it all a flat colour and start again. But, you know, I think it looks alright. And lastly, for any of you into the hobby who might be watching, you may have noticed I haven't drilled the barrel of my bolt gun. Now, to any of the uninitiated, that's not a euphemism. It's just something in the hobby that because the guns and the bolters, the ends of them are flat, people like to drill the holes out to make them look a bit more realistic. I never do this though, I'm one of them, so if you're triggered by that, I do apologise, but I don't tend to do them on my own models, so when it came to this, I did forget actually to start with, so when I realised right at the end, I thought it's too far now, I've painted everything, I'm not going to drill it now, I'll just do what I normally do, and put a big black splodge on the end of the bolt gun. And here he is then, so this is fully completed. Finished painting, I've given him a matte varnish, although looking at it from this, he does look a bit shiny, but I do promise you, it's meant to be a matte varnish. So, taking a quick look at him, you know, everything looks almost identical to, you know, I say almost, it looks exactly identical to the previous scene. All I have done is just sealed it all, so not much else to see here. I just thought I'd give you a quick tour of him and just show you, yeah, the completed thing. So after that, what I might do actually is just show you how he compares size-wise to some of the other bits and bobs, and then that's it. Before we finish this video off, let's just do a quick size comparison to some things then. So let's just start off with your regular Warhammer models. So we've got a Chaos Marine and an Assault Intercessor, and as you can see, they only come up to about his knees. And a quick comparison to a Baal Predator from the Blood Angels and a Contempt to Dreadnought. And again, as you can see, he's still towering above them both. And lastly then, just for the little comparison, he doesn't stand as tall as a McFarlane Chaos Space Marine, but he is a little bit taller than a Joy Toy Mephiston. So yeah, just a little size comparison for you in case anybody was curious. Well, that's the end of the video then. So I just wanted to thank everybody who's tuned in. So if you have watched it and you've made it this far, really appreciate it. All I can say really is that I've had a blast doing this and I've learnt a lot along the way. So this is the first time I've ever had a go at doing something like this on a grand scale. And yeah, areas I know I could improve on and bits I wish I could have done better. But like I said before, it's all learning. So I didn't expect to get it, you know, spot on in the first go. But I know what to look at and what to focus on if I do it again sometime. If you did enjoy this content, then please come back sometime because I will hopefully be doing something similar or along these lines again at some point, as I had an absolute blast doing this, as I said. So I would like to try something else one day. So anyway, like I said, thank you again, and hopefully you'll all come back and I'll see you again sometime. Thanks, bye!